Let me explain at least how I think is what is going on, and I'd love for you to elaborate on it. So every 10 years, there's a census that provides the populations for states. The state legislators are allowed to then redraw the congressional districts based on the populations. That determines, and the population determines how many House seats there are in that state. Typically, that happens once every 10 years. It seems like Texas is doing that in an off cycle, and California, in response, may do it as well. Is that, in general, what is going on? I'd love for you to elaborate and offer any more details as to what I just said.
For sure. I'll just note, legislators are mandated to do it every 10 years. And in many states, there is no mandate or specific constitutional language that says that they can't redraw in the middle. It's not common. As you noted, it's very rare. Some states, it's impossible constitutionally, but that's what we're seeing in Texas. So there's no law in Texas that says you can't redraw. It's just absurd. And clearly, in this instance, a very pure partisan power grab where, President Trump this morning said that on TV, I don't know, he did some interview somewhere, said that he believes Republicans are entitled to 5 more congressional seats out of Texas. Use the words entitled.
So I guess the average listener would say, why aren't, and it's just because they have never been so cynical like this before, why haven't more houses tried to do this? And is it the House? Is it the governor? Who determines ultimately where the lines are drawn?
Yeah, it's a state-based process everywhere. So each state has their own individual process, but in many states it runs through the legislature and the governor. Some states have independently drawn commissions. That's like Michigan and Colorado, where they set up an entire infrastructure once every 10 years that draws the maps without partisan politicians like getting their hands into it and making decisions. And unfortunately, I think what we're seeing right now is Texas has changed a lot in the past 5 years, and they've made decisions that they think they can squeeze more juice out of this orange and try and steal congressional seats halfway through the cycle at a rate that is alarming. And it's completely absurd what they're trying to do. And frankly, all of the things that we're describing right now are specific tactics that they're using. But the main focal point here has to be how incredibly weak this administration and this president are right now to take on this endeavor. Like they're very comfortable taking on all this political baggage and saying, we don't really care. We don't care about voters. We don't care about suppression. We don't care about drawing communities of color into packed and cracked districts. All we care about is delivering 5 more congressional seats out of Texas and more probably out of different states.
And then why haven't other politicians or groups of politicians attempted to do this in the past?
I mean, I think the populations don't change that much very frequently. And so sometimes you have a scenario in which politicians there's not usually that much difference in the population shifts that they have from year to year or decade to decade. But in this instance, again, I think we've just never really seen a president that's as comfortable with his own weakness and being able to go forward leaning and say, I don't care that everyone's going to say I'm weak. What I care about is retaining the House of Representatives, because
even if the population were the same in a state, in those in which it is determined by the local electeds to redraw the lines, could they, in theory, redraw the lines however they want?
Well, there's a lot of constraints on how you draw the lines. And one of the constraints that we've used pretty consistently is the Voting Rights Act. And so we've filed litigation in a number of different states around Voting Rights Act claims where, for example, we were successful in Alabama 2 years ago in achieving a second Black majority seat in Alabama for the first time in history. And for the first time in history after that election, Black Alabamians were able to elect 2 members of choice, whereas they weren't completely cracked into different districts. So I don't want to say people get to do whatever they want, but there is it totally depends on the state whether or not they could pick up the pen mid-cycle or not. I just think the outrage around whether this is mid-cycle or happening on this, right after a census is reasonable. I understand why it feels confusing and sporadic, but the outrage really should be on how dramatically the Republicans are going to gerrymander Texas, you know?
And can you help our listeners understand what's also happening now in California in parallel?
Yeah, of course. So, as I noted earlier, Donald Trump has commanded from on high that he will achieve 5 new Republican seats in Texas. Obviously, that set off a domino effect where other individuals in other states are taking a much harder look at ways in which they can make changes in their state, either to balance Texas or to make adjustments post census. So in California specifically, Governor Newsom has made a number of public statements at this point that he is going to try and seek a different corrective path, some way in California to redraw the maps and balance Texas. And you've seen in the past week, I don't know, time is flat for me right now. It's been a hell of a week, a couple of weeks, but we've seen our organization and the chairman of our organization, Attorney General Holder, has changed some perspective in the way that we view the world, in that we've been comfortable not opposing now places like California making corrective action for what's happening in Texas. Whereas we've been in a fight against gerrymandering our whole lives here. In some capacity at the national level, we can't return to the days of 2010 where Republicans have a full lock on the legislature, the U.S. House of Representatives, and Democrats simply aren't able to compete.
And what would stop now? I don't want to, I guess the best way to phrase it is race to the bottom on this, where every state that is able to do this would start redrawing their lines.
Look, the answer is it starts in Texas. Like, Texas does not have to redraw. There is no reason for this spiral that we're currently talking about. The only reason is Donald Trump's seemingly will and, whatever group of advisors he corralled in the Roosevelt room and said, hey, I need 5 seats somewhere. Go get them. At the beginning of this Texas crisis now, we have the governor used a Department of Justice letter to validate his need to redraw. The Department of Justice letter is complete nonsense, and it's not legally representative of reality or, frankly, any current legal situation. So it's clear that, again, a group of people sat around a table somewhere in the White House and said, I don't know, craft a letter that will tell them they have to redraw so that they can do it. And please go. So I think the way to stop this spiral is to stop it in Texas. And I want to applaud, the legislators in Texas for breaking quorum and making a very courageous move and walking out of the Texas House to ensure that they don't have a quorum to vote on this right now.
And so in the medium term, because I know it's hard to predict the long term, how does this proceed? As you mentioned, there needs to be a certain number of representatives in the Texas House in order for them to even vote on this, right? And that's why you're seeing the Democrats leave the state, but they can't stay out forever. So how does this end in Texas? And then where do you see this, at least in the medium term, going nationally?
Yeah, I think the real answer is that I don't think there's a person alive that can answer that question. No one knows where this is headed right now. Texas, just to be clear, will come back. Their special session ends 30 days after it began. So that's August 21st. So at the end of August 21st, their special session will end. I think it's possible that Greg Abbott calls another special session immediately. Could call it for the 22nd. Could call it very quickly thereafter. And we will be back in this same scenario of trying to figure out whether legislators are going to be in state, not be in state, however they are going to make decisions for themselves. And I think we don't know the answer to how Texas manifests or what the domino effect of Texas will be in full. We saw reports this morning that J.D. Vance is contemplating a trip to Indiana to try and seek potentially 1 or 2 districts in Indiana, which would entail carving Indianapolis up into a pizza and really muting the people of major cities across the country. We've already seen this happen in Nashville, where you draw districts where it's just a little slice of the city and then it goes into a rural population, and you're really muting the voice of everybody in the city. So it's possible that this goes well beyond Texas, California, into places like Indiana, Missouri, Florida. Has, Governor DeSantis seems to feel a little left out. Just a little sad. But, he's talking about it too.
Governor Newsom will be releasing his proposal in the near future. Is that correct?
I believe that to be true. Yeah.
And what is the long-term sustainable solution for this, so that this doesn't become just a normal, regular course of action? What do you endorse as a way to do this in a way that is fair and sustainable?
I appreciate the question because everything is happening in real time right now. It feels very fast and rapid, and people are changing and emotions are high. The truth for us is nothing has ever changed about the reality that independent redistricting commissions nationally is the best path forward. Having politicians out of the process of redrawing congressional maps is the most logical reality. Also, when you put it to voters, like 70 to 75% of voters feel that way every time. No one thinks politicians should draw their own maps and retain their own power. No one loves this, Republicans or Democrats. And so to me, federal legislation, which we have championed over almost a decade now, but trying to seek federal law change to enable independent commissions in each state, or at least streamlining the legal process for outlawing partisan gerrymandering. So you've seen language pass through the U.S. House of Representatives in H.R. 1. There's some parts of it in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Those would be fixes that would stop things like this from happening.
John, thank you so much for joining us. We know you're really busy and hope to have you back as this continues.
Thanks, Dan. Anytime.